Ready? Hello, I am your humble host of the Harlem Book Fair, Bob McNeil. As we all understand, Harlem dealt with hardship over many decades. Nonetheless, from those problems, art, poetry, music, and plays rose like high rises. Even now, amidst national strife and a global pandemic, Harlem maintains the sturdiness of concrete. Out of this trying time, a new age of creativity flourishes. Once again, Max Rodriguez is here to make everybody know that words and images in New York and the far reaches of the whole world. Before we proceed with our program via the internet, thank Max and the Harlem Book Fair team with emojis and text messages. Tell these meritorious brothers and sisters how much we appreciate them for this yearly event. And there's so much to appreciate. For instance, throughout this program, you will see the many brilliant authors they assembled. That assemblage continues later when we premiere a show called Spoken at Night, a poetry reading for those who want entertainment and enlightenment. Let's not forget the HBF team created a forum called the Sunday Young Readers Event. This year, like so many others, these tireless organizers provided something for everyone. Wait, I am getting ahead of myself. Today, for this virtual version of the Harlem Book Fair, we are going to do more than celebrate the talent of various authors. Gifted people always gravitate to this literary program. That is not new. On this day, aside from promoting our work, we must acknowledge our blessings. Outside attacks from viral problems, bigotry, and unfair political policies have not stopped our voices. Time and time again, each one of us lives these words by Maya Angelou. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. While acknowledging that point, within this forum, express your thankfulness. Remember, we are the living voices for those who are muted by mortality. Now, let's give our attention to Essie Soga, executive editor of Defina Books and Kensington Publishing. She is truly an important voice in the literary community. Thank you. several of Lawson Roby's novels deal with corruption within the church. So, suffice to say, there's a lot to be told about her work. Give me 1 minute while we transition. Just give me one moment. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. Now? So, once again, I would like to reintroduce Essie Soga. She did a wonderful job speaking to you earlier, and I just want to say an incredible editor, truly a person who understands literature in its myriad forms. Now we're going to have a panel discussion called What Women Know and the stories they tell. Now, the one thing I know about women is they are smarter than men, and they're not shy about telling us guys that. Am I right? Well, come on, admit it. I know this for a fact. I came to terms with this a long time ago that women are much more mature than their male counterparts. Am I right to say that? Come on. Just by nodding. Yeah, yeah. Okay, come on. Let's admit it. And when it comes to logic, I think that women far surpass men. You're laughing, but you know it's true. Listen, men basically are funny looking children. Okay? We're just funny looking boys, essentially. Okay, but anyway, let's bring the panel right now. Okay, so we have some wonderfully talented individuals, and they're going to explain the subject much better than I. So, once again, let's give our full attention to the panel on the subject of what women know and the stories they tell.
Very excited to be joined here by a panel of wonderful authors. We'll just quickly introduce you, unless you'd rather introduce yourselves.
Started from my experience that I had as a sports journalist, where I was actually in a press conference where a big time quarterback called me sweetheart in the middle of the press conference. Like, who does that? Like, I'm working. And, it was something that stuck with me because, studying journalism in college and wanting to cover sports, I met the first Black sports reporter on TV in Charlotte. And she talked about the things that women have to do in the locker room when you're reporting and all of this kind of stuff, because you're one of many men that are in there. People look at you in a certain way. So when that happened, I took it real personally. I called my dad and he was like, oh, if I ever see him on the street, I'm going to beat him down. I was like, I know you would, because he's like a Vietnam vet. He don't care. But it was just something that stuck with me. And I was like, I had to be professional in that moment. I couldn't respond to it, but I was like, I write fiction, so I'll get my revenge in print.
Good job.
How about you, Nita?
I take a lot of my experiences from my day job and the people I deal with and put that in my books. more specifically with the essence of perfection, I dealt with the main character thinking that she is as good as everyone says she is, because that's something that I personally struggle with in my day job and also with writing. You know, I get compliments, and sometimes it's hard for me to accept that. Or when people say you've done a great job with that, or you're a good leader, sometimes I'm kind of like, me, the girl who sit at home and like watch Netflix all day. So it's hard to accept that sometimes, and it took me a minute to be okay with saying what I want, going after what I want, owning the fact that I do know as much as I think that I know on certain subjects. I'm not like across the board know-it-all, but I wanted to write about a character learning to accept the fact that yes, you are as good as people say you are. It's not a fluke. Your success is your hard work that leads you to that success, and I hope that when other people read stories like that, it'll help them on that same kind of journey. So that's one of the things I took from my real life as I wrote this story.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, women certainly face a lot, having to, and then Black women on top of that, having to prove yourself in the face of people who say, oh, you can't really achieve the things you already know you can achieve. Kiki, I mentioned in your bio that you draw from your own experiences. And I think one of the things that I really love about your books too is that you draw from experiences that people, I think, sort of often look at in a negative light. And yet you draw these really, you really make them come to life and create these complex and full characters, which I'm sure comes from your experiences. So how do you make that balance? I cannot hear you. Let's see. Maybe if you try muting and then unmuting. No. Do you have headphones? Okay. While we're checking on that, I'll also ask both of you, Sharice, you just mentioned a little bit this negative experience you'd had in your life. One of the things that's great, I think, about a lot of the books is not everything that happens in them is like happy-go-lucky, everything is roses. But at the end, you still end up feeling fulfilled. So how do you balance those things of really showing, maybe some of the harder parts of life, but still delivering a satisfying story?
Because life is not always just about the hard things. We have a lot of things that we celebrate and that are successful to us as Black women. We have joys, we have pain. So when I write, I want to show both sides of that. It's not just about showing trauma. It's about showing how you overcome that and how you have a successful and happy life. Because a lot of us are living successful and happy lives. And it's important to normalize that. Everything that we do does not have to be trauma-based. Everybody has hard times, but you also have happy times. And it's important to write about those hard times and how it turns into happy times and how you get that happily ever after. Because if anybody deserves happily ever after, it's a Black woman.
True. It's the truth. Nina, what about you?
I'm sorry, I got lost in Sharice's answer to the question. No, I mean, what she said is absolutely true. I like messy, realistic type stories. Not to say that a non-messy story isn't realistic either, but I just like showing, the hardships that people go through, the true emotions people have to deal with that sometimes aren't pretty or cute. You're always told, I'm a Black woman, I'm strong, I'm tough, I can handle it. And so sometimes, writing about someone who's having a hard time saying that and feeling that, or people may not want to I want people to see it so it's normalized. So you don't always have to put on a brave face and always have to act like I am woman, hear me roar. Yes, sometimes you may just want a day where you're just, sitting in your feelings and you deal with that, and then you figure out how to handle the hardships in your life. And so I think putting that in stories makes it a little bit more normal for other people to talk about that, feel comfortable with that, and not thinking they always have to just be the strong Black woman who can't ever talk about her emotions or admit when she's feeling weak or down with someone who's close to her that she trusts.
Yeah. I actually want to follow up on that with you with a question about Essence of Perfection in particular, where part of the plot is that your main character has written a list of regrets that gets shared more widely than she had planned on. And I really wanted to talk a little bit, as you were talking about this idea of the strong Black woman, the idea of writing a character who not only has regrets, but has to sort of face up and share them and sort of be vulnerable to the world who maybe doesn't want to see her that way.
Yeah, that too is also kind of based off something that happened in real life. I was sitting around with some friends one time, and we were just talking about all the stuff that we wish we would have done. And I'm like, no, I've got, if I live to be 100, that's how many more years of life. And I don't want to always look back on, a certain part of my life and say, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that, So I tried to take that approach in my own life. I still don't do everything, but I want to, be able to say yes to things that I want to do. And so I have a list of things that I probably would have done differently. I don't have a personal list of regrets because I've tried to do that. Try to do the things that I really want to do. But yeah, it would be really tough to even share that sometimes with friends. And the Essence of Perfection, it was like national news, all the stuff that, she wished she would have done. So that's a lot to deal with. But by going through the process of doing the things that she wished she would have done, she found closeness with her sister, closeness with other family members. She found love. She found acceptance for herself. So sometimes by tackling the things that you were afraid to do, you become stronger and you discover new parts of yourself.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Kiki, I just want to check in again to see if we can hear you yet. No. No, it's not. Oh, please. Been rampant today, so don't worry. Well, okay, I'll let you keep playing with that. And Sharice, I'm going to ask you a question about your series, about the Richardson sisters, and specifically writing about sisters. I don't have any sisters, so I always find stories about sisters really fascinating and sort of this other world that I don't quite understand. And as a child, I really wanted sisters, and as I've gotten older, I'm sort of half and half on it. But I'm just wondering why, in particular, why you want to write about sisters, what it is that sisters know, and the way a sisterhood shapes how you tell a story.
Well, I have a sister. I have an older sister who is the person who actually introduced me to romance and is the person who reads my stories before I send them to you. So it's like, if my sister is like, yeah, that's stupid, you'll never see it. But I feel like I've been blessed with my older sister, my blood sister, and then the sisterhood of women that I surrounded myself with that I have people that I've surrounded myself with that are friends, like a little gang, but it's